morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, May 9th, 2016. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Steve Hellwagon. Steve, Nike's The Opening Combine was held in Columbus on Saturday. You were there covering it along with our Bill Kurlick. Let's just go right through the whole thing here. Let's start with Antoine Simmons. He's an Ohio State recruit. Sounds like he did very well. Tell the listeners how Antoine Simmons looked.
Yeah, he did great. In fact, he is one of the less heralded members, I would say, of this Ohio State recruiting class. His ranking's only around 250 nationally, and yet the coaches there selected him as one of the top linebackers in the group, and he got his invitation to the opening finals. He was the only Ohio State verbal commitment out of 6 of them who were at the regional, earned that distinction. So he has kind of a leg up on the rest of those guys in saying, hey, did you get open? I got open. So, it's a lot of fun for these kids, and they don't get to play AAU basketball and go play in a tournament every weekend and all these other things and get the limelight so much as maybe the guys on the travel basketball thing. But this opening has become such a national event with what happens in July out at Nike in Oregon. And I think that for a kid like Antoine Simmons, this was huge. I mean, he's not a big guy. He told me he's about 205 pounds, which is not big for a linebacker, and yet they're going to put him in the Marathi program and pack that next 15 or 20 pounds on him. And the words that keep coming up are Darren Lee, that type player. And what was interesting to me was we got to watch him basically, I think it's called the cat and mouse drill, where the ball carrier is trying to cross the goal line. And, I mean, they're not hitting, but, it's in such tight space and tight quarters that only the special players have the ability to get there and meet the running back in the hole and stop them. And so, Antoine, I don't think I saw him miss on one of those. And he looks like he's a special talent to me. So, from Ann Arbor, Michigan, Pioneer High School, and he's going to the opening, and he did very well at the camp there at Westerville North on Saturday.
Yeah, as you mentioned, from Ann Arbor Pioneer, literally across the street from the big house. So
right
what
there,
a gift from Ohio State, stealing one literally out of Michigan's backyard.
No doubt. I think he supposedly had over 35 or 40 offers and picked Ohio State back on March 1st, and I just think he's a guy, believe it or not, he bleeds scarlet and gray. Don't ask me how or why, but he's a guy that is very excited to be an Ohio State Buckeye, so we'll see how that all parlays down the line.
Let's look at a couple of the offensive linemen that were there. Buckeye commitments, Josh Myers and Jake Moretti. Are they just, I understand neither one of them got an invite to the opening, as you mentioned, because Antoine Simmons was the only Ohio State commitment to get one. Are they just waiting on the offensive lineman? Is that the deal with Myers and or Moretti?
I think both of those guys will ultimately get invitations. They have 14 stops for this regional. Each one they take anywhere from 5 to 10 guys on the first pass through, and then they obviously are going to look at the recruiting rankings of these players. Well, these guys are both in the top 100 nationally, so they're going to have a good chance to be on the second list, let's say, that gets an invitation after the fact. So Myers, to me, he was in the offensive tackle group, very lean, athletic offensive lineman. I wouldn't say he's Taylor Decker all over again, but kind of reminds you a little bit of Taylor Decker, or maybe even more athletic Taylor Decker. So I think that people are excited about what Myers has in terms of strength. He held his own in the one-on-one drills. And then Moretti, he was over in the guard and centers group, did some work at guard, some work at center, snapping the ball. And again, I think he impressed people with his footwork, agility, and I think he's a guy that's going to have an outstanding career in front of him. So you've got a couple of stud offensive linemen coming to Ohio State with the M&M guys, Myers and Moretti, and I just think, give them time. They're going to be in that lineup sooner rather than later.
A few more OSU commitments were there. Brendan White, I want you to talk about him. Brendan White's a guy that I'm very high on. And then a couple of guys who are currently commitments. We'll see if they are ultimately in the class, Danny Clark and Todd Sibley. So talk about all those guys. Start with Brendan White and then get into Danny Clark and Todd Sibley.
Definitely. Brendan White, He's from Liberty High School, just north of Columbus. His dad, William, of course, played at Ohio State. He is being slotted right now, it would seem, as a wide receiver. That's the group he worked out with, but a lot of people think he could play corner, safety, any number of positions at the college level. He was very smooth in and out of breaks, and he and Danny Clark, the player you referenced moments ago, they had a great kinship throwing the football one to the other, and it was great to see the way Brendan was running routes, getting open, and catching passes. And I would have to think that from what I saw, he would also have a good opportunity to get an invitation to the opening when things are all said and done. I thought he did a really nice job. I'm excited to see what he does in his senior year at Liberty, because he is just kind of scratching the surface, I think, of what he's capable of doing. You mentioned Clark. I did a big interview with Clark that's on our website. I posted it midday on Sunday. And obviously there's a lot to discuss there. He was offered and accepted the scholarship after his freshman year, and now 2 or 3 years down the line, wonder if there's some buyer's remorse by some folks in the Ohio State camp over Danny Clark. I guess we'll have to wait and see how that all shakes out, but he remains committed to Ohio State in every way, shape, or form, and is even involved showing some people around at Ohio State. Jameis Williams, outstanding defensive back from Georgia. They were pictured together on the OSU campus. And so we'll have to wait and see on Danny Clark what happens there. He says in his mind he's an Ohio State commitment, but we know how tight the space is in this class, and that they're also out there actively recruiting Tate Martell, the kid who just decommitted from Texas A&M. So we'll see on that. And Todd Sibley, obviously also at Akron-Hoban, he's been asked whether he would consider gray shirting, which would mean he would defer his full-time enrollment at Ohio State until January 2018. And I just have to laugh about that, because that kind of speaks, I don't know what it says about where they're at in terms of running back recruiting. They got J.K. Dobbins, of course, now, and still out there trying to recruit other running backs as well. Todd, to me, showed a lot of great, he looks like he's chiseled out of granite. Todd does. Not a big guy in terms of height, but definitely I would say he's probably in the 210 to 215 range, and looks like he can play the running back position. So whatever happens with him, we'll wait and see. But again, great to see all those guys in person at the camp over the weekend, and to me, White is going to be a keeper, I think, when he gets to Ohio State. And if he's half as good as his dad, he's going to be very good.
No doubt about that. Let's look at some of the guys, Steve, some of the standouts who are not Ohio State commitments, but Ohio State would love to land. Let's start with Donovan Peoples-Jones, 5-star wide receiver. He was invited to the opening. Sounds like he put on a show. Just talk about Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Definitely. He went up against all the great defensive backs and more than held his own, caught one pass after another, got deep against some guys, and ultimately was selected to go to the opening. And again, not a surprise. Donovan Peoples-Jones had an outstanding year, up in Michigan, and he's a guy that, Michigan State, Ohio State, whoever ends up with him is getting. The guy I posted a photo, he reminded me of David Boston because of how big his arms looked, and I just think he's going to be just a difference maker wherever he ends up. So I look at him. I see a guy that could play anywhere in the country, and he's going to bring it. Now I got a chance to talk to him. I'm posting a story on him on Monday. I know Bill Kurlick had a bit of a update on him over the weekend, but I'm also going to have something on Monday as well, maybe a different take on him, and he is just an outstanding wide receiver.
And Lamont Wade surprisingly did not get an invite to the to the opening. Maybe he will get an invite to the opening down the line, but talk about the outstanding cornerback.
Yeah, you did throw out there the defensive backs. Lamont Wade from Clairton, Pennsylvania. I've never had a great feeling that he was going to end up at Ohio State. I suppose it's a possibility. He was one of many outstanding defensive backs at this camp. I mentioned earlier Jameis Williams from Archer, Georgia was in this group. He was a real standout player at this camp. Ambry Thomas, also from Detroit. Martin Luther King, he was there. I believe he was selected to go to the opening. Malik Gray from Tennessee was also in this group. Jalen Kelly-Powell from Detroit Cass Tech. Amazingly, Donovan Johnson was the guy who won the fastest guy at the camp. He's from Cass Tech. Michigan was well represented at this camp between Donovan Peoples-Jones and everybody else from Cass Tech and MLK and all those great schools up there. Michigan football must be on the rise. I think it has something to do with the fact that now that there's two great places for players to play up in that state as well as Ohio State and a number of other places. But yeah, I mean, the guys from Michigan really stood out at the opening regional in Columbus.
Let's close the show talking about 2018 quarterback Phil Yurkovich. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Jurkovec. I'm going with Yurkovich. 6'5" quarterback, again, in 2018 class, just finishing up his sophomore year in high school. Already 6'5". Maybe he'll be a Brock Osweiler type at 6'7", Paxton Lynch before it's all said and done. But talk about how he looked and talk about whether you think the Buckeyes have a very good chance of eventually landing him, Steve.
Well, I think Ohio State is definitely in the running. I know that Bill Kurlick pronounces it Yurkovich, but I think you could say Yurkovich, whatever you want to say. I think for Ohio State fans, as long as you say Ohio State Buckeye, I think that would be good. But, you know, you think about what Ohio State's quarterback recruiting is right now when you talk about, you know, the guys they have, Barrett, Burrow, Collier, of course. He was at the camp yesterday on crutches, and you just hope for the best for him. I just caught one word with him. He said he is out definitely for the season, will not play in 2016, and, you know, tough break for that kid. And then, of course, you got Dwayne Haskins coming in this year, Danny Clark theoretically next year, maybe Tate Martell, and then now they're also after Phil Yurkovich. If they can get either Martell or Yurkovich, you got to feel really, really good about the future of the quarterback position at Ohio State. And Yurkovich, to me, I mean, he's got it all. I mean, they had him among the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the camp who came back for the showdown. They did not invite any quarterbacks from this regional just yet to the finals in the opening, but you know, he has a possibility. They will sometimes take a junior quarterback for the Elite 11 as just kind of an observer or an extra guy. Maybe he's got a chance to get that invitation, and better yet, he's going to have an opportunity to be a stud at the college level. So he's going to have his choice of schools. I don't have his exact list in front of me. I know that Bill Kurlick did an update with him, and I know that Ohio State is definitely at or near the top of his list.
Yurkovich, I've never learned how to pronounce his name. He is ranked as the number 1 dual-threat quarterback in the country by 24/7 Sports. The other rankings are not out yet for the 2018 class. This is just the 24/7 Sports ranking, so they have him as the number 1 dual-threat quarterback in the country, number 9 overall player. So he is absolutely big time. And right now, the crystal ball, Steve, 50% to Notre Dame and 50% to Ohio State. That sound about right to you? That it looks like a Notre Dame-Ohio State battle at this point, or you think some other schools could get involved?
I think that definitely makes the most sense. Those two schools are pushing him really hard, and obviously he's had a chance to get to Ohio State for some unofficial visits, and the big key will be getting him back on campus for camp this summer, maybe Friday Night Lights, and see what happens from there.
Well, great insights as always from Steve Hellwagon. Thank you for the wisdom, Steve, and thank you to the listeners for tuning into the show. I appreciate it and hope you have a great day. Let's hear some Buckeye swag, Dust and Band in the land.